I'm Andrew Walsh, aka Bat Phantom, from the Operation Pug podcast, proud member of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're listening to now. The opinions expressed are those of each individual host. Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
This is it. The part of your week where you get to put your headphones on, relax, and listen to a bunch of geeks geek out about geeky things. They're witty.
He loves him some Katy Perry because she kissed a girl and she liked it.
They're crazy.
I like Nickelback personally, but, I'm the fuddy-duddy who likes episode 1.
And sometimes they leave you wondering, what the f***?
I'm pretty sure that here we were starting the hashtag movement, Bring Back Slave Ferrell.
Gonna Geek Productions presents the official GonnaGeek.com show.
Hello and welcome to episode 199 of the official GonnaGeek.com show. I am Stephen Jondrew, and with me, of course, is Chris Ferrell.
Well, hello, internets.
And sadly, Stargate Pioneer is away this week, but it's not so sad when you know that Michelle Ealey is with us again.
Hello, happy Monday.
Michelle, thanks so much for coming on here. Appreciate that.
It's always a pleasure to be on.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you. You always know exactly what is the right thing to say to balance out all of the wrong things that Chris says.
Which is everything.
True.
SP will be back next week for episode 200, so check that out. We're going to have the big 200 extravaganza next week at geeks.live. You can check that out at our usual Monday recording time. That's 5:45 p.m. Pacific time. That's 8:45 p.m. Eastern. That's going to be on Monday, July 17th. Come on over to geeks.live. Now, we actually have coming up a little bit later a certain special guest. Isn't that right, Chris?
That's right. We do have a special guest coming. We teased it last week, so just stick around because we're going to talk to Justin Robert Young about the Action News Kickstarter and the widely successful Action News Kickstarter, I might add.
Yeah, that's an understatement. But before we get there, I just want to remind everybody that if you like Michelle Ealey, which you should do, you can find Michelle all over the Gonna Geek Network. She's always making appearances, but primarily you're on one specific podcast, aren't you, Michelle?
Yes, I am on the Starlight Tribune with Chris and SP, where we talk about the show Arrow and all the other DC television shows on the CW network.
Awesome. Well, you should check out Michelle at GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Let's go ahead and move on. Here we go. This week in the news, we're going to go ahead and start off with something that people are saying, wait, there's still a thing? That's right. We're talking about how Blackberry's Keyone phone is apparently going to be okay to buy again. Now, what is the Keyone? Well, it's one of the latest Blackberry phones, but it was plagued with some issues. There was a slight problem where as you were using it, the screen would kind of just fall into the phone. It just kind of broke.
Oh,
yeah.
That's just a little bit of a problem.
Now, apparently, even though BlackBerry has denied manufacturing issues, they promised that they would strengthen the adhesive that was used under the screens. Now, they plan to start releasing these updated versions, because there was nothing wrong with the first one, but they might as well do it.
That was a feature
soon.
for quick release screens. If something happened to it, you could easily swap a screen out then. It's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah. So this is something that they are continuing to put out products. And again, apparently this is going to hit the stores soon, but I don't know. I wanted to bring this into the news points because number one, as Brian says in the chat, wait, BlackBerry is still a thing? Yeah, apparently so. But number two, we talked a while ago how BlackBerry came into some money, some sweet patent settlement money. And I think that this is a bit of a example on how they needed said money since apparently the phones they were making were breaking.
The only reason why people still know what a BlackBerry is because President Obama used one.
Oh, that's so true, isn't it? Here's the thing that I want to say. Michelle, you should get a BlackBerry and be the BlackBerry correspondent on the Gonna Geek Network.
The official BlackBerry correspondent. We still need a Windows Phone one, though.
Well, if somebody gives me a raise, then sure.
Oh, Chris, go ahead and field that.
I'm getting paid like a 0% wage, so even when you doubled my salary, it didn't do anything for me.
That's true. Anyways, I hope that BlackBerry will somehow succeed, but this is the type of thing that shows me that they are destined for failure. So, hey, I know SP, you're listening to the show. You said you wanted to get yourself a BlackBerry again one day because you like BlackBerries. Maybe you can give your $0 wage a doubling and thus be the BlackBerry correspondent.
I have faith.
All right, Michelle, you have way better news than BlackBerry, don't you?
Oh, yes. TVline.com reported Stephen Amell was at Nashville Fan Fest, and he said, I can report that Manu Bennett is back to being part of the show, and I think we will see him multiple times this year, which is awesome. That means we get Deathstroke back on Arrow. So happy.
This is fantastic. Now, for those of you not familiar, there is a CW television show called Arrow, and that's the one that we talked about earlier. Michelle does a podcast called The Starling Tribune, which talks about Arrow. This character and this actor has a very complicated story and history with the television show, and last year we were greeted with him in the season finale, and the mystery as of this date is who is going to make it to next season, who will die, and now we know that at least Manu Bennett, the character of Slade Wilson, will continue within the Arrow universe. Now, I think we all expected that because it is Slade Wilson, and the character itself is primarily seen in a costume, so even if your actor isn't there, you can bring him in, so we were all pretty sure he was going to make it, so I'm glad that he's making it. It's just more exciting that Manu Bennett is coming back in a larger role because he is much needed on this show right now.
Yes, he actually got people excited about Arrow again. Also at the panel, Amell teased that we will have somebody returning to the show this year that we have not seen since season 1. I was hoping that it's the Huntress, but Huntress was last seen in season 2, so I'm kind of hoping Amell forgets that and it's still the Huntress. And Stephen also said that Oliver will be living in an apartment this year. I hope he remembers the fern, and that we are still going to get the flashbacks, possibly looking at the lives of the other characters. So,
I think that this guy right here, Steven, called that already. I think we said that on the show. I said it's coming back. I predicted a few episodes in. I still think that that's the case. I still think we're going to get a few without, and it's going to come in a few episodes into the season.
Exactly.
Chris, I know you said that you hate Manu Bennett, right?
No, I never said that. In fact, I said he's been my favorite character on the show for a long time, and he was the best villain on the show. So if they truly do what I'm assuming is some kind of redemption arc with him, I'm stoked. I'm really excited.
I agree. I just think that this is a much needed breath of fresh air, or old air, I suppose, back in the show. It's exciting, and in any case, we can all hope that Felicity died on that island.
Ooh, those are fighting words with half of the fandom that wants them together. I would be fine with it. I live tweet the show, and so I have to read all those hashtags Felicity Forever things, and there are a big chunk of the fans that will probably rage quit if she's dead.
You know who it is, who is coming back though, right?
No.
The kid?
It's Tommy. It's totally Tommy coming back.
Right. Sure.
Come on, he wasn't since the first season, was he? We did get him in a flashback, but
flashback.
That's true.
But he is season 1. So, but the only way he could be alive is, daggone it, Barry.
Or perhaps they're on one of the many other 100 ways that characters have survived death on that show. But Let's go ahead and move on to our next news point, which is unfortunately not a breath of fresh air. See what I did there, Chris?
Oh, I see what you did there. So if you guys aren't aware, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, it's arguably going to end up being Game of the Year. I think it went gold back in February. There's a lot of excitement right now because DLC Pack 1 just dropped, I think like last week, and DLC Pack 2 is set to drop, I want to say around December holiday timeframe. So there's a lot of fans speculating, this Breath of the Wild game is great. When are we getting a sequel to Breath of the Wild? Well, according to famed Zelda producer, and I'm going to screw up his name here, Eiji Aonuma, fans are going to be in for a bit of a wait. In a new interview, he was asked about plans for a follow-up to Breath of the Wild, and he basically said the development team are still a long way away from thinking about a new game. He states there are no current plans for a future Zelda. He and the team are in very early stages of gathering ideas for a sequel. Why is that the case? Well, in part, DLC. They've just done DLC drops. And also, one thing to realize when you go back and look in time, as he's been working this project, Skyward Sword, the last Wii game, was 5 years in development. Breath of the Wild, 5 years in development. So even when they start, we're still probably about 4 to 5 years in development before we get the next Zelda game. So we're a ways off, but that's okay, because if you haven't played Zelda Breath of the Wild, I'm here to tell you, you can probably play this game forever, because there's so much stuff to find in there. There's like 900 Kurok seeds you've got to go and hunt down if you want to unlock everything in the game. 120 shrines, all sorts of challenge modes getting dropped in there with DLC. The game is like crack, and it keeps you distracted because there's so many things going on. I've put like 50, 60 hours into the game. I've barely scratched the story. I've just wandered around Hyrule being like, that looks cool. What does that do? Oh, that's a horse. I want that horse. Oh, I'm going to cook this dish. It's terrible, guys. I don't get any gameplay done because I'm too busy exploring. So even if we're 5 years out from the next game, I might not be done with Breath of the Wild by then.
So did you just say that it was like crack? Is that correct?
It's like crack.
And you're saying that people should play the game, right?
Yes, I am endorsing the crack that is Zelda Breath of the Wild.
So let's just cut that soundbite off where he says he's endorsing crack, okay?
On the official GonnaGeek.com show, my name is Chris Ferrell, and I endorse Zelda Breath of the Wild, i.e. crack.
Have you played Skyrim, Chris?
I couldn't get into Skyrim, actually. And here's the thing. I'm not much of a fantasy gameplay person. I don't like the Elder Scrolls games. I don't like the Dragon Age Inquisition games as much. I'll play them. Generally, I like space fantasies and things like that. So Zelda is one of the very few fantasy type games I can really get into. And I think it's just because I grew up playing those games and I have such a love for them still that nostalgia comes into play. Because Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time are two of my favorite games of all time to this day. Now I'd probably put Breath of the Wild up near the top of that list too, which is also a problem. But hey,
you know what, Chris, you should just endorse them every single episode, because then maybe they'll just give you an official sponsorship deal.
Yeah, Nintendo's not going to pay us.
It worked for SP with the GMCC. Oh wait, no, it didn't.
Oh yeah, no,
never mind.
Not yet.
You know what's funny? I've never played a Zelda game.
That's okay, because it takes a Nintendo to play a Zelda game.
Wait, but you have an NES Classic.
Yeah, I've not. Maybe I played it once at like a friend's house when I was a kid. Maybe. In my actual adult memory, I have never played it at all. Any game at all ever.
Okay.
You're fired.
I'm going to admit that I played the first one to death. So my parents got me a used Nintendo system, and they got two games, Super Mario Brothers and the other one, Legend of Zelda. But because they were used, they came with no box. So I had no box, and I wasn't allowed to get Nintendo Power, and I knew nobody else who was playing Nintendo because I was, the girl at school. And so I literally spent a year figuring out how to play Legend of Zelda on my own. I took notes, I made maps, and the whole deal. I played that game like 3 times, and the last one I played, I actually finished the game in like 3 days because that's how well I knew the game by then. And then I'm going to have to confess that I haven't played a Zelda game since, because for a variety of reasons, I actually haven't had a Nintendo product. So I have no Majora's Mask, no Ocarina of Time, none of that. It's just been the original.
They're all so good though.
I'm surprised Chris is right here. I thought for sure he would have walked away.
Why would I walk away? I mean, no, I understand. They're great games, but not everyone has to play them. But I strongly encourage everyone, if they have the opportunity to do so, to play them.
All right. Well, thank you for supporting me, Michelle. I thought for sure I was about to get flogged.
No.
Publicly.
And let's move on quickly to our extra section, where we've got a couple of very interesting stories. Number one here, let's go ahead and talk about how apparently Google decided to preempt Amazon Prime Day. That's right. If you're familiar with a little indie website called Amazon, they have started this new thing every year for the last 3 years where they put a bunch of sales on there. You know, instead of being $14.99 for something, it's $14.98. They give you a cent break. And that's what they do, is they do this every year. And today, as we record this, July the 10th, it is begun. Actually, while we were recording, the Prime Day for 2017 has begun, and it carries on to July 11th. Well, if you're also familiar with Amazon, you might have heard Chris and myself and Stargate Pioneer talk a little bit before about how there is a voice assistant called Alexa. There you go. She just activated. Now, there is
Steven.
There is also a Google service called Google Home, which is a voice assistant, and they've been battling a little bit, and Google decided that they were going to list the Google Home on sale for $99 American, including a free Chromecast. So they decided to preempt Prime Day and do this, and that's kind of interesting because I think that Google Home is probably feeling it a little bit, because I think Amazon still is leading the way with voice assistants.
So there was an interesting article I read on my lunch break today when I took about 15 minutes to eat my lunch, and it was showing the sales trends for Google Home versus Amazon Echoes. And as you built up towards the Christmas holidays, right around that last 3 months of the year, Google Home actually took the lead over Amazon Echo devices. But coming into the beginning of 2017, Amazon Echo took the lead again. And part of the theory there is, hey, Google Home was new then. You had a lot of people that were jumping on board, wanting to check it out. And then Amazon continued their steady increase on things. Let's be honest right now, as we record this, Prime Day started 26 minutes ago. Amazon started a 2-hour early Prime Day deal where all of the Echo devices were basically like half off. Or, well, the main Echo was half off. The Dots were $15 off. So the smart home and virtual assistant war is going right now, and I love it.
Well, I actually, for a brief few days, owned a Google Home because it just released in Canada, and Amazon Echo is not in Canada officially. So my Amazon Echo that I have, the Echo Dot, is actually quite stunted because it doesn't do half the features. So I thought, okay, well, Google Home sounds good, but the thing that ended up being my deciding factor to not keep it was the price tag. I don't have a cheap version of the Google Home, so for me to expand my house, I have to have one of these large cylinders in every room, and that's not what I want visually. It's not what I want to price tag wise. It's just, it doesn't make sense for me to invest in that yet. I was really impressed with what I saw for Google Home, but that right there, I think until Google can come out with a cheap version, it's going to stop them from taking back that lead, because not everybody wants this cylinder sitting in every room, but they're willing to put just a little hockey puck somewhere. So I think it's Amazon is in the lead for that main reason.
I have my own Echo. So far, I'm not getting the bigger one yet. I'm just sticking with my one Echo because I need it to do more than just control light bulbs. I'm wanting more of like an assistant where I can keep like my appointments and my schedule and my calendar and have like little reminders about things like that. And so far, there's no apps yet that really take advantage of that. And I'm waiting for it to get better.
Yeah, and also, if you are wanting to do that, I got to say, from my experience, I think Google Home is more up your alley for that sort of stuff. They do a really good job with the calendar integration and the proper multi-user support with Google Calendars. And a lot of people use Google Calendar, right? So, but again, it comes down to a convenience factor. Maybe you have a situation where you're okay to have one in your house, but if you have a house where you got multiple floors, that's not really that great. So now you're stuck even at $100 a piece, paying $200 as opposed to the Echo, which you can get right now on Prime Day for what, 35, I think it is.
35 for the Dot, and the full size one is on sale for $89.99 right now.
That's
so
crazy.
they have beat. Now the trade-off is you don't get a Chromecast. If they bundled it with like a Fire TV stick,
Whatever.
that'd be a ridiculous deal if they wanted to be like, hey Google, we're gonna beat you, but they don't really need to.
No. Speaking of voice assistants, let's go on to our second and last extra news point, which comes courtesy of Suncast from GFQ Network. He actually linked this to us, so thank you very much for that, Suncast. And here's the long story short. Miscredited as a Google Home, was not a Google Home, was another voice assistant, which we don't know yet, but presumably we can assume what it is. It is essentially called the cops on a domestic dispute. Now, what the situation with this is that apparently, as this couple was arguing, and one of the parties was allegedly taking things too far, ended up saying something like, "Did you call the sheriffs on me?" To which it thought that the device sitting there thought it said call the sheriffs. And so then the cops were called, and it was not a very good situation allegedly not a good situation from what I've read online. So the police showed up, broke up this very serious domestic altercation, and thus we end up with a voice assistant essentially saving somebody's life, potentially, allegedly.
I wonder which one it was, because I don't think the Echoes integrate with cell phones for calling yet. I'm not 100% sure.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that. I assumed that it would have been Echo, since originally it was published as Google Home, and then it was quickly retracted, and everybody, no, it is not Google Home. So I assumed it was Alexa, but you're probably right on that.
I like Suncast's comment in the chat room. Always double check for the A word / Google Home before committing murder. And the A word was not a curse word. I just don't want to trigger my Echo that's sitting outside of arm's reach, just barely from me.
Yeah, obviously you can. I gotta hope that this was authentically the story, how it happened, because while it did save somebody's life potentially, I really do hope that it was an accidental function and it wasn't somebody pushing the privacy that we've theorized about, especially if it wasn't a Google Home or it wasn't an Amazon Echo. Whatever the alternative service is, are they going to be as tight with security? Was somebody happening to be listening at the time? We could theorize all day, right? It's kind of scary to me, but at the same time, I think that, it's very fortunate, but it was something that we had to mention on here.
Yeah. It's really cool news. I mean, I can't wait to find out what device it actually was, to see how it happened. That's what's got me intrigued.
Mm-hmm. What's your take, Michelle?
It would be interesting that if you were in that position and you could say out loud, hey, device, call 911 for me. And then like that could happen and that could be useful. It would be interesting, like the complete set of events that led to that device calling the authorities.
Yeah, that's part of the big question marks that I've got here right now, is definitely what was the circumstances behind it, because it was intriguing to me, but I want to know more. Now, I think there's actually potential here for a skill to be built into these voice assistants where you could have like a very complex code word or something that it would call emergency, right? Like, essentially a keyword where if you're in a bad situation, you could say it and it would pick it up. I think that would be interesting to see. And I think that that's a potential here that I didn't even think about until now.
In the chat room real quick, I see that Brian Cofford said Google Home can't make calls yet. Just checked mine. As far as I know, Echoes can't either. So maybe they triggered the assistant that's always listening on a cell phone itself. Because remember, Google Assistant is always listening. Siri is potentially always listening as well. So maybe that's what actually ended up happening, because I don't think these smart home devices have the ability to call yet. And if they did, they'd have to be tethered to a cell phone to do it, I think.
Yeah, that could be. That's a great point. So, all right. Well, that's going to go ahead and wrap up our news. Stay tuned. We've got a awesome interview for you next. All right, so we have a very special guest that I will go ahead and turn over to Chris Ferrell to introduce.
So like we teased at the top of the show, joining us today on the Gonna Geek Show, we've got Justin Robert Young. You might know him from such podcasts as, I'm not going to list them all, of course, but Night Attack, Politics, the JuRY Cast, Hotline Monday. He's all over the internet. He's joining us tonight. Justin, thanks for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you here. Part of why we brought you here today is I chatted with you a couple weeks before the Action News Kickstarter went live. I was like, hey, you want to come on the show, do Action News? I was like, maybe we can help him get everything funded. Yeah, they got funded in what, 3 hours, Justin?
It's just a share under 3 hours. So yeah, it was very, very, very fast, and the whole team just could not be more thrilled that we did it that quick.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I couldn't believe that. I think I was at work when Chris sent that to me, and I'm like, okay, I'll check this out a little bit later. And then it was like, I don't know, I didn't even get a chance to breathe basically before I saw Chris's update. So congrats on that. That's amazing.
It's to me, it just shows how much people really like the Contender. And what really makes me so excited is how much faith they had in us, and we really, really, really feel that this game is a step up from the Contender. We took a lot of lessons that we learned and tried to put it into this. And man, I'm just so excited for people to just get their hands on it. Like, I just want to fast forward.
I can't wait to play it. Honestly, I was showing the YouTube video you guys posted with the background on it. I played it with my girlfriend. She goes, that could be interesting. I said, these are the same guys that did the Contender. And she goes, oh, we definitely have to play this then.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those things, we got so wrapped up in that video that I almost feel like we took a lot for granted. We probably just should have been face up to the camera and said, hey, we did the Contender. Now we got this new game. It's great. You love it. Go. Bye.
We all made the connection. We're like, okay, got to get it. This is a great game. So
we gotta go.
Yeah, exactly. So for people that aren't exactly familiar with Action News, can you give us a little background about the gameplay, give people a little insight about what kind of game it is?
Absolutely. So this is a conversational card game in the same way that the Contender was. If you're unfamiliar with that, think about Cards Against Humanity, except you're not going kind of round by round. You're more just having an actual presidential style debate with your friends using real presidential debate quotes. So it was a very, very fun game to do, a fantastic one to research. We took that same idea and put it to television news, except this time we wanted to really, really recreate kind of a around the horn sort of news broadcast. So you have one anchor, all the other players are reporters. The anchor assigns each anchor a news story. This is a real news story. The only thing on your card is one sentence, and then everybody picks from the same grid of sentence fragments to create their script. You got sources on your card, so you can fill in any blanks, which creates for some hilarious quotes. And then once you're done, there's a timed round. When that ends, everybody reads their story. Anchor decides who does the best job, and that's the game. There's some real fun twists and turns that it takes, including each winner of a round gets a little Scoops Award, which gives them the power to screw with another reporter in the next round. So you can, for example, switch out their story at the last minute, or force them to say the word apparently before every card, and make them use a BBC anchor accent. So there's all sorts of fun in the game, and that's really where we kind of felt like we took the next step from the Contender was that. So we are again just tickled pink with the game, and we feel that it's super, super fun.
So it's a family friendly game then?
Like the Contender, the base deck is indeed family friendly. We have the viewer discretion advised pack, which is similar to our politically incorrect deck with the Contender, which gives you some cuss words and some dirty nonsense.
I'll be completely honest. When I saw that was one of the additional levels on there to get that one, I was like, okay, I need the dirty part of this just to make it fun.
Oh,
even more fun.
Yeah.
Rather.
That's something we haven't finalized yet. So if you've got any filthy story that you feel like should make it in there, just go ahead and hit me up on Twitter at Justin R. Young. The only one I'm totally for sure on is Lorena Bobbitt. Lorena Bobbitt's
that has to be. That's a guaranteed perfect story for that.
She's gotta get in there. But other than that, we will see.
So I saw that you were doing a crossover of Action News and the Contender with one of the expansion packs. Was that something you guys had thought up at the beginning of doing Action News, or was that something that just kind of serendipitously came together as you guys were developing Action News?
That was something where, as we started to finalize the game, we kind of realized that there was this natural plug-in point where you could use some of the cards for the other game. And, at that point, when we realized that there is this kind of natural juncture, there was just no other way to do it. We just had to, we had to make the expansion.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how that works, because the Contender is regularly in my game night cycle of games to play. It's generally the first or second game that gets pulled out in the evening right now.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And I really, really, really do feel that Action News will be something like that for you, where, the biggest thing that we've kind of prided ourselves on is we didn't want to do, like, our DNA as creators is making improv games without improv. That's kind of our guiding mindset, because as much as I love, very writer-driven games, and there has been a slew of them since Cards Against Humanity, or very performance-heavy games like Super Fight or something like that. What I've always found is that there's always one or two people at the table being left behind. Well, there's some people, the hams of the group, which are me. I am an absolute ham. And so I'll go off the cuff and scream and yell and jump up on the table and be a real horse's butt, all day long. There's always just the other people that are kind of like, man, this is my jam. Let's move on to Catan, right? Really, I wanted to do was create a game that had an on-rails performative aspect, but it wasn't about being clever in the moment. It was being clever in the strategy. And so we kind of began to get there with the Contender, but it's so spare that I think people wind up kind of performing anyway. This game is about that writing. It's about shuffling around your pieces and then reading it in whatever tone of voice you want. And it's going to be hilarious, because the people that are clever but aren't necessarily big hams are really going to show their skills. And it's something that we've gotten a ton of feedback on. I think it's a reason why we're popular with schools. We've gotten word from a lot of teachers with the Contender that this is a game where, a bunch of kids are playing it. And meanwhile, there's a little bit of sneaking a little bit of that the political thing in there. And with Action News, you sneak a lot of that history in there, where, we have a card in our demo pack that we've been sending around to people that, is a referendum vote in the United Kingdom to remain part of Europe's common market, right? The European Union common market. And that's something where you just kind of realize, when you look at history on a long enough time frame, how much silly stuff has happened in hindsight. And we kind of hope to sort of point that out in a really funny way.
So here, play this game, and you might learn something while you're doing it. It's a good combo.
And we never really want to market it as an educational game, because I don't think that necessarily screams hilarious fun for the pub. But
that's fair.
I am that guy. So I am the guy at the bar who starts far too many 15-minute diatribes with, what's interesting about blank.
But see, that can be your strategy, right? Because now that you've just quickly exhausted, the fundraising and you've locked that down, I'm sure you're trying to find a way that you can keep that ball rolling. So just market it as the only thing you need to know to educate yourself on world events.
Sure. Yeah. Believe you me, our fundraising is far from exhausted. You can always make sure that you go there. And to be honest with you, I think not to put a bonnet of urgency on this adorable plea for cash, but I think going through this process has been really, really kind of stressful on the team. And I would not be shocked if the only way that you can get this game will be from this Kickstarter. That's definitely something that I think might happen. Just because doing these games is hard, and we are a really, really, really small team, and I would not be shocked if that was the case. There's nothing set in stone or nothing, but I do think that there is a strong possibility that this will not be quite as available as the Contender was, which if folks have followed some of our behind the scenes stuff on that, we overordered hilariously for the Contender, and that will not be the case this time.
Well, I have a question for you as a Canadian, by the way. So you're talking about this is going to be the only place that you can get it as Kickstarter. I always go to Kickstarters and they don't ship to me. It says US only. Is that the case with this?
Absolutely not. We are shipping all over the world. We want to make sure we take care of our Canadian friends, our UK friends, Australian, Belgium, all the other countries. Come on in. We will ship to you. I wish it could be cheaper. Believe you me. I really, really, really wish it could be cheaper, because it is so over expensive, specifically to ship to Canada. It's just an absolute joke that it costs the same for us to ship to Canada as it does to Australia. But, I don't make the rules.
So I see Bad Weaves in the chat room over on Geeks.live says, I got the chance to play Action News at Nerdtacular this year, and it was a blast. Really looking forward to hitting those stretch goals and unlocking even more cards for the game. So you got people coming in the chat room saying it's good already too. It's all positive signs.
Listen, it is a great, it's a great game. And I'm a weird dude. I'm a very strange person, and sometimes I have a hard time for all of my kind of braggadocious nonsense. I have a hard time saying actual nice things about myself and my work. So it takes me a lot when I have to sing and dance this, for the game to just kind of tell everybody exactly how proud I am of what we did, because I really think once people sit down and play it, you just kind of appreciate all the work that really went into it between myself and, of course, my co-creator, John Teasdale, and the amazing design done by our design partners at Guts and Glory.
So there's news still happening every single day, and especially given our climate, almost every hour right now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have plans, since this is funded, do you have plans for expansions down the line?
It really, really depends on where we kind of go big picture with the game. But certainly one of the goals now is to have the news delivered to you, not only news from the past, but also news as it breaks. So we are very much hoping. What we found with the Contender, and this was something that I don't know if I've seen anybody else do on any kind of large scale, because we would have ripped it off earlier if we had seen somebody else do it earlier. With the Contender, we found that people responded to big expansions where we did 100 cards, but people really went wild for more responsive, like 15 card expansions at a lower price. So like what we did with the Contender was we put out little expansions for each of the debates, the Clinton versus Trump debates. And those were very popular for us. And then we did one for the victory speech, the All I Do Is Win expansion, where we took victory speech quotes from all throughout the presidential history, including one from whoever won. And as it turned out, it was Trump. And that was very, very popular. So what I suspect that we will do with this, and what we've promised on the Kickstarter, is that not only will we do a few of the going back in time kind of expansions, but also a lot of what's happening now, because I don't know if you all have taken a peek out your window, but we are living in a very newsworthy time.
Really?
It certainly is.
Sorry, we don't get the internet up in Canada.
No. You guys just look into the blinding smile of Justin Trudeau and Wilt.
That's fair. That's pretty
We're
accurate.
only a little jealous down here. So, Justin, I know you got to run, but as we wrap up, we're going to put all the links in the show notes for where people can go to find Action News, to fund it themselves. Where do people go online to find out more? If they want to learn more, if they want to back the project, where can they head to?
Sure. Just go ahead and check out actionnewsgame.com. Again, actionnewsgame.com is where you go to. That'll get you right to the Kickstarter. You can sign up for a mailing list if you want, and go ahead and check that out. It is, again, if you're a fan of Cards Against Humanity or Super Fight or any game like that, this will be right up your alley. I guarantee it.
And of course, if you ever do another Kickstarter, you're going to have to beat that 3-hour record. You know that, right?
I mean, are you trying to give me a heart attack, like right here on your show? Is that what you guys do here at the Gonna Geek podcast? It's give your
instant
guests
ratings if we do.
I know. I mean, I'll just freak out, and I'm sensitive, and of course I'm never going to run a Kickstarter again. I'm going to set the goal to 5 cents so I can do it in 5 seconds, and then I'll freak out because I'll have to beat 5 seconds.
Well, thank you so much for coming on here. We greatly appreciate that. And I hope that this continues to double and triple on a daily basis as it's doing.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day.
Thanks, you too, Justin.
Let's go ahead and move on to our next segment. All right, Michelle, this is exciting. You had yourself a very largely busy week this past weekend, and you wanted to talk about a certain convention that you went to.
Yeah, this past weekend, July 7th through 9th, was the Indy PopCon held in Indianapolis, Indiana. Note that I said PopCon. It is not a comic con. So the difference being with the PopCon, it had everything from, like indie video games. It had anime fan panels. There was a lot of voice actors this year. For example, for video games like Troy Baker, Johnny Young Bosch, anime ones like Caitlin Glass, regular like Jesse Harnell, who was Wacko from Animaniacs, Richard Horvitz, and Phil Lamar, who is Green Lantern. I went to one of his panels, and the moderator was like, who are you known for? And Phil was last. And each time Phil said, well, I've done this and this and this, he actually did the voice. So like he was one of the orcs in Shadow of Mordor, and he said it in that voice. And like I was this character, and he said it in that voice. And literally he listed off like a good 10 of them, and you heard 10 different voices, and the crowd just went nuts after he was done. We also had a lot of YouTube personalities like Jesse Cox, the Anime Man, Peanut Butter Gamer, and Pro Jared. And we had a few of names that some of us probably recognize. Garrett Wang, who was Ensign Kim. And I went to his panel, and he's like, do you realize that over 7 seasons, I never got promoted? I'm like, the only one. Tom Paris started off as a criminal. He gets promoted, but good old me never got promoted.
And Tom Paris actually gets demoted. He gets demoted within the series and then gets promoted again.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. I have, my heart goes out to Harry Kim. I also saw, by the way, that he was hosting the Star Wars panel. WTF, Michelle?
Oh, well, in that panel, there was Timothy Zahn and Greg Grunberg, and Garrett is like, I am a huge Star Wars fan. You know, like that was his gateway into the whole nerdy geekdom thing was Star Wars. So, you know, you can be a fan of both. Okay.
That is true.
Okay, I will go with you this time.
And another person who, you know, we know and love, and that's Matt Ryan, who played Constantine on Constantine and who reprised his role in Arrow. And I went to his panel and he actually let it, I don't know if he was supposed to say anything or not, but his voice work for the animated series that's going to be on the CW Seed, his work is done. And he talked about having to learn a complicated voodoo spell. So whatever the plot involves, there's going to be some voodoo magic. So it's a nice little tidbit there.
Wow.
That's cool.
That's cool. I wonder if I have a feeling he wasn't supposed to say that.
Yeah, they can't get too mad. It's positive press. Everyone's like, oh, this is cool. And the fans get speculating because I'm sure come Thursday or Sunday when we record the next Starling Tribune, we'll probably spend some time speculating what this means.
Yes.
All right,
See,
Michelle.
she said we're going to, so we're going to.
No, it was a lot of fun. You know, there's like little things like, you know, I went to Greg Grunberg's panel, and the first fan question was like, will we get Snap Wexley? And he actually was like, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question. And the person said, do we see Snap Wexley in the next Star Wars movie? It's like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Do we? Oh, and he's like, yeah, that's right. I know nothing. You know, he can't talk about it. Like, duh, you know, Marvel has snipers. I mean, come on. But he did reveal, like he played a character on The Flash called Tom Patterson, and he did the role first because Kevin Smith called and he was like, hey, you want to do this? And Greg's like, you know, you say yes to Kevin Smith. That's one of the people on his list that he just says yes to. And there were supposed to be more Tom. He appeared in 2 episodes. There was supposed to be more, but Greg's schedule conflicted with everybody else's and they couldn't make it work. And then Tom just faded off into the sunset.
And they're also BFFs. They actually have like a TV show where they talk about how they're BFFs. So
yeah, it was on AMC, correct?
Yeah,
I believe so.
They are doing another season. It just will not be on AMC. He doesn't know. He doesn't know where it's going to be, but he did say that there is another season. It's just going to land someplace else because he said AMC is going into their own direction with talking this and talking that and talking this some more. So it just doesn't fit there anymore.
I gotta say that Comic Book Men is a interesting show in itself, and I watched this, whatever the name of the show was, with Reagan and Kevin, and it was pretty boring.
It's called Geeking Out.
Yeah,
that sounds about right.
I think so, and it was not only just boring content, but it was also their deliveries didn't always mesh well together. Like, I felt like Kevin Smith actually had a really good presence, and probably because of his history. And I felt like Greg he almost seemed like he was always trying to put it on, and it always seemed inauthentic. So I gotta say, I'm surprised it's got a season 2.
That's what he said. So I'm going to take him at his word for it. Because he really talked about like how it was like, I guess, in pre-production or something like that, and how it's going to land someplace else.
And then they randomly brought in somebody else within their pod circles within like the last 3 episodes. She just kind of showed up and was part of the cast. Okay. Don't know who this is, but sure, why not?
Yeah, why not?
All right, Michelle. So tell us right now, what was the highlight of the show? The number one highlight.
For me, it has to be the Twisted Tunes panel. Jesse Harnell, Troy Baker, Phil Lamar, and Richard Horvitz. they have this Twisted Tunes. You can find it on YouTube. They did this live reading of like the first half hour of The Princess Bride up into the Battle of the Wits part of that. And so they divided it up into scenes. And in each scene, so they got like different assigned ones. So for example, they had Troy be Buttercup, but as Alan Rickman.
That's fantastic.
They had Jesse Harnell be the narrator as Kermit the Frog. They had Richard be Wesley, but as Katharine Hepburn. And then they had like Phil be Indigo, but as like Mike Tyson. And as each scene would stop, they would go, okay, we're going to switch everything up. And then everybody would have a new voice. I had no idea that Troy Baker, Last of Us, and all that could do Aaron Neville. And he sang the lines and oh my God, check them out on YouTube if you can. I literally, it's something that, first off, I did not record it because it's actors doing a performance and it's not a fan panel. And also, everybody was laughing so much that the audio would have been awful anyway. I was laughing so much I almost peed. So that's how funny it was.
That's a ringing show of endorsement right there.
For what it's worth, I wet myself about half hour ago, so there you go. Well, Michelle, thank you so much. Any final thoughts on Indy Culture Con? Is that the full name? PopCon. I made up a name. Sorry.
Holy smokes, Overwatch is popular.
Yeah.
The fan panel was packed. The way Indy PopCon works is that you can, what we call in con speak, camping, meaning you can attend one panel and stay for the next. So I kind of went in the back because I wanted to attend the panel next. And it literally, there was only a few seats in the back where I just slid and did the entire main stage. It was the voices of Diva and Lucio, because those two, and literally, like, it was wow. I knew the game was popular, but I had no idea just how popular.
So you said Overwatch is popular. Again, I'm not the biggest Felicity Smoke fan.
I see what you did there, Stephen.
Yeah, I did that. So go ahead and check out the Starling Tribune on GonnaGeekNetwork.com. Thanks so much, Michelle, for talking about that. We do greatly appreciate that. And thanks for coming on here today. It was a ton of fun. And I know we've talked about the Starling Tribune, but go ahead and take a moment here to plug and promote yourself however you would like.
Well, not only do I co-host on the Starling Tribune, I also do write for the site. I have my saga of going through the Star Wars new canon up, and I will also be bringing you stories from Indy PopCon to the site over the next 2 weeks. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Awesome. And I gotta say right now, Michelle, my sincere apologies. You gave me full permission to post your awesome tweets and Facebook posts on the Gonna Geek site, but it was a weekend that I was just completely tied up basically with stupid amount of events. And so I did not serve you well on the Gonna Geek site. So my apologies, Michelle.
That's okay. Fortunately, I was using the hashtag Indy PopCon, and a lot of people caught on. And I forgot that I have the alerts from my Twitter on my phone. So, like, for example, I went to the Jesse Cox panel, who's a YouTube guy. And he, one of the people was like, will you spray silly string on me? And he was like, sure. And so I took a little video of that and I posted it, and literally, like, my phone it was like, what the heck? And it's like, oh, because I hashtag Jesse Cox, hashtag Indy PopCon, and it just went
and there went your battery.
Yeah.
That seems to happen a lot with any like live tweeting and things like that. There's always this one tweet per night that ends up getting picked up, and then we just like that because usually it's either the Starling Tribune account, which Stargate Pioneer has on his phone, or the Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D. account, which Stargate Pioneer has on his phone. So he just ends up getting all of these tweets while he's like trying to sleep. So I think it's awesome.
That's why I only put show Twitter accounts on my iPad, not my cell phone, because I don't want to know in the middle of the night when somebody retweets something for one of my podcasts.
Awesome. Well, before we do shut down, I want to take a moment here to give a shout out to Dan, Sergeant Muffin, located over on the Diamond Club. Diamond Club is a nice little community, and it's how we've been streaming out video over the last, 6 to 12 months on the Gonna Geek show. It's been fantastic. Low delay streaming platform. It's been fantastic. Well, this past weekend, Dan, Sergeant Muffin, he made an announcement regarding the Diamond Club, and essentially there's going to be some changes. He's stepping back. All of the scripting that he's done is probably not going to be around. It's a bit up in the air. Got a couple of months still, he's hoping. I'm going to encourage you just to check out the post that he wrote. You can tell there's a lot of thought in it. I had a little bit of fun with the short link. If you're part of the Diamond Group, you go to www.geeks.link/Diamond Group. And you can check that out.
Hashtag podcast awards.
And you can check out the information there, which for you, the viewers who watch us live at geeks.live, it means that you're going to see a lot of our shows experimenting with some different platforms, because unfortunately the main platform we used is going away. At least it's looking that way. So if you see us hopping all over the place, it's not because we're trying to annoy you. It's because we're trying to find what the best long-term fit is. But again, if you want to check out that announcement, it's www.geeks.link/Diamond Group again. And you can check that out there. And thank you very much to Sergeant Muffin for everything you've done for everybody. And, you gotta do what works best for you. And I understand.
Yeah, big thank you to Dan. He did us a great solid by putting the Gonna Geek show on diamondclub.tv. Then also did us another solid by opening it up so the other programs on the Gonna Geek network could be seen there, because All Things Good and Nerdy and the Starling Tribune, they also streamed there. So thank you so much, Dan, for giving us an opportunity to become part of the community over on diamondclub.tv. Have some of the folks from Chat Realm join us on our shows from time to time. It was awesome, and thanks for building that great internet clubhouse for us, Dan.
Absolutely. But that is going to take us to the end of the show. So, for episode 199 of the official GonnaGeek.com show, I'm Stephen Jondrew saying that's the last episode in the 100s.
I'm Chris Ferrell saying check out Action News.
I'm Michelle Ealey saying say hi to Bill the Dragon.
I'm Stephen saying just nothing. Just nothing. Bye.
That's what I was assuming. Bye, guys.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the GonnaGeek.com show. If you enjoyed it, please give us a 5-star review in iTunes or a thumbs up on YouTube. We encourage you to send your feedback by email to show@GonnaGeek.com. You can find our entire archive at GonnaGeek.com/show. And while you're there, why not check out all of the other geeky content on the Gonna Geek Network? Want to chime into our live chat? Join us Mondays at 8:45 p.m. Eastern at www.geeks.live. The music heard on this show is by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. This show was produced and edited by Stephen Jondrew of Gonna Geek Productions. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.